Welcome to the Mac Power Users. I'm David Sparks, and as always, joined by your friend and mine, Mr. Stephen Hackett. How's it going, Stephen?
It's good, David. How are you?
I am excellent. And today we've got a guest on the show. Welcome to the show, Jaimee Finney.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Oh, man. We've been friends a while now. Jaimee is a woman of many talents and interests. And so I think the first time you and I met was when we were speaking together at one of the conferences. I don't remember which one it was now.
I don't either, but yeah, I had to have been maybe one of those, like the Yosemite, one of those Mac or iOS conferences way back.
Exactly. Back when that was a thing. But you've done a lot of development work. You've got a business. You've just got a lot going on. And every time I talk to you, I'm always amazed how much you're doing. And I thought you'd be a great Mac Power user to share with the audience because of all the plates you keep in the air. So today we're gonna talk about that.
Oh, thank you. And I feel honored and a little bit like a fraud under the lens of a power user, but we'll talk through what I do.
I want to talk about that because some people think being a power user means you're using the most complex app system. But to me, a power user is a person who ships a lot with their Mac. And you certainly are a power user. And it's going to be fun talking through your workflows because some of the stuff are basic apps and some of them aren't. But you've got an interesting mix here that I think people would be interested in hearing about. So don't sell yourself short, Jaimee.
All right.
A couple things before we get started. The Alfred Field Guide is still on sale. As this show publishes, there's just a few days left on that intro discount. MPU Alfred gets you 10% off. We got a link in the show notes. And we did a whole episode on it last week. You can check that out as well. Thanks, everyone. I've heard so much from some MPU listeners that have got it. I really enjoyed making this one, and I'm really happy to see how people are like upping their Alfred game with the Field Guide. So thank you very much. Jaimee, before we get started, tell the audience a bit about yourself.
Oh my goodness. Well, David, I suppose my background, I spent about 15 years on the product design side of things, working with companies like Zappos and Apple and clients on the client side like NASA and IBM and all that good Disney. Designing digital products. And then I hit burnout pretty hardcore in about 2012. And I walked away from my product work and kind of soul searching, ended up becoming an executive coach and almost like a life coach. I hate the term life coach, but I was coaching folks in the tech field who've also experienced burnout or career coaching, career pathing kind of stuff. Did that evolved into building my own products, with my kind of focus on life and what's important, and ended up launching a clothing company with my partner in business and in life, Ken Finney. We launched Picture This Clothing.
Yeah. Let me just stop there for a minute. So, you were like consulting and speaking and talking to people about their digital products and really kind of an authority in the field. And then one day you're like, didn't you get on like Good Morning America with that company, Picture This Clothing?
Oh man, Picture This Clothing. We were everywhere for about 8 months. I mean, everything from the Today Show, Good Morning America, Ashton Kutcher tweeted about us, George Takei tweeted about us. We were invited to pitch on Shark Tank. I kind of failed fabulously, so we never aired, but we went through the whole process.
Wow.
And so, I mean, it was, it was a really spectacular, the day we launched, we got a write-up in TechCrunch, and it went bananas from there for about 8 months nonstop with the viral. Like every time it would kind of simmer down, something would pick it up and it would just go bananas all over again. So that was an amazing way to launch a new product.
Yeah. Okay. So just for the audience, so Jaimee, like I said, Jaimee's got a successful kind of career consulting and helping people. She comes up with this idea. I think it was for your daughter, right? Like, so the idea is you draw a picture and then your company turns that into clothing.
So yeah, I mean, like the basic of it, I like to summarize. So, and this was a very collaborative, Ken and Jaimee sort of thing. So I had, working for myself as a coach, I designed a dress for my daughter who was 7 years old at the time. She drew a picture. We went to the fabric store. We made it real. And it was a 3-day arduous sewing project. And I'm kind of like 4-H level sewing skills sort of sewer. So,
Yeah.
but we did it. We made it real. She puts it on and she's like, my imagination, which like she wears this dress for 3 months nonstop. And everywhere she goes, people are like, oh my gosh, that dress is amazing. It's this rainbow, spectacular lycra, thrown together. But everywhere people are complimenting it. And so Ken actually says like, man, you've got something here. You should do something with this. We should do something with this. And, initially that idea was kind of like, no, I'm not doing this for other people's kids' imaginations. Like, how hard this was. But he was really the genius behind the simplification of it. And so collaboratively, we built Picture This Clothing over the course of not quite a year, about 10 months. We worked with a friend of ours named Ignazio Lacitignola, who did the design side. We came up with this sort of simple concept. So it's print out a coloring sheet, which is just like kids know from a coloring book, right? A coloring sheet of a dress and or t-shirt now. You print out the coloring sheet, you design it any way you can imagine, which means you can color or marker or whatever, but you can also use 3D objects, anything you can take a smartphone photo with. So the second step is to upload your smartphone photo of your design. And step 3, we send it back ready to wear.
It's so cool. I mean, I like many other parents, right? The refrigerator is like covered in things my kids have made. Now mostly my youngest, because my older 2 are in high school, but having it's just so cool, like that creative spark and letting kids have something that they made. Like I remember when y'all launched this, it was so cool and continues to be so awesome. It's just such a great idea.
Thank you. And we really it is, started out beautifully, but it's kind of become more of a labor of love. We keep alive through our other ventures. So.
But to me, this is entirely consistent with my experience of you, Jaimee, that she would make a viral clothing business on the side,
Yeah.
and she would, get on Good Morning America with it, because that's how Jaimee rolls. But but that's not all. Like, you're also still doing consulting, right?
Yeah. So here's a funny thing that I don't know if I spilled the beans on, but I accepted a full-time role in a completely different realm from my past history. And I'm currently the global director of learning and development, which falls under like a people operations team at a company called Play Studios. So that's very fresh. That's very fresh. So yeah.
All right. Excellent. But now what do they make?
Mobile games. So they started in sort of the casino games environment, but also do casual games like Sudoku and Solitaire and Mahjong and some really cool. I love the casual games. Those are the ones you find in your Tesla. That's same ones.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, it's really impressive, Jaimee, all the stuff you do, and that's why we wanted to have you on. You are certainly a power user in life, if nothing else.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I feel like I'm sitting amongst peers in that realm. You guys have both done some great stuff, and it's really an honor to be invited to be on your show.
Well, share with us your gear. I mean, you're on the Mac Power Users. You use Apple stuff.
All right. Well, again, this is like one of those context things. So and I want to just preface, after burnout, I really I went through a whole process of sort of disconnect. And, where when I was designing stuff, I was like the newest Mac, the newest phone, and the newest iPad, all the time. And now I think I think my iPhone, I have to even look, I think it's like an iPhone 14. And even just to not know, this is who I've become over time.
Actually, I'm going to defend you there, because I feel like the iPhone, except for people who are camera nuts, I feel like the iPhone doesn't improve that much year over year. I mean, back in the early days, every year, was a big jump, and now it's becoming more of a commodity. I think most of the audience is probably not on the most recent iPhone. I would guess.
Yeah, well, and I think that's okay now too. And I'm planning an upgrade maybe toward the end of the year. We'll see what happens at WWDC and
Yeah.
like see
Yeah.
what comes out in the fall. But like I'm not in an urgent hurry to do that. But as far as like, so I do a lot of Zoom calls, and I was doing a podcast for a while. I do occasional guest stuff, that sort of thing. But so I feel I have a nice setup for my desktop, right? So I have a nice iMac, and I have my camera. I have a Nikon D750. I have a Shure SM7B microphone, some decent lights. So that kind of setup for my desktop. And I'll again credit Ken for this because he keeps me in good gear, making sure I'm not looking too janky out here.
Is it possible to have like too good of a Zoom setup for like normal business stuff? Like,
I think it's possible, and this might be overkill for just Zoom calls, but like we set it up actually when I was doing, when the pandemic set in, we started doing a live show, a live stream for Picture This Clothing, just creative stuff kids could do at home. And it like where Picture This had kind of fizzled out around 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021 were almost as good as our launch year. So
yeah.
they, picked up because it was a great thing for kids to do at home. So on Facebook, we used Facebook Live, and Ken put together this amazing setup where, the front camera is the Nikon, and then we had a great overhead camera as well, where you could, super zoom in, and we were using, it was just a really nice setup. So we had a lot of those live streams there, and we had a great, we're getting a 2,000 to 5,000 views on every live stream there for a while. We also live streamed the hand cutting process. So we wanted it to be really nice and really quality. And we were experimenting with stuff like Facebook Live and Twitch streams and YouTube, all sorts of things, just kind of seeing what might work and what's fun. We wanted it to be good quality. So I just kind of have the leftovers of that.
We do hear, we hear from listeners sometimes that are like, hey, what are you using for your Zoom setup? I want to like really upgrade my game. And I'm mixed on it. Like, I feel like if you're just like in a company and going to Zoom calls, you should definitely get like a light and like maybe, think about ways to make it look better. But then do you really need a mirrorless just for going to your company calls, or does that become like a discussion point? Like, oh, fancy Jaimee, she's showing up in her Nikon. And like, it's like you have to like kind of walk the line if you're just in the normal business. I think everybody should have a good light source, though. That's the worst thing. Is when you're on someone's Zoom and they're like in the dark or really grainy.
Yeah. And, like a lot of people use those like darken the background or the fake background. And those are great. I love a real background. I feel like I get to know you a little bit through your background. And, sometimes it's a great icebreaker conversation piece. And for the context of what I've been doing as well, as far as Zoom calls, it's not just internal corporate conversations. There's a lot of that, but there's also, I wrote and conduct like a new hire orientation. And so it's like the welcome point for this company. And then I do a lot of manager training stuff, and having a nice camera for external stuff, I think makes us all look better. The care investment on quality matters.
And then like the mic
so
situation,
it really is context though,
just
right?
gets easier and easier. Like if you do something like that, if you're doing training or something, the internal mic probably isn't good enough. You should probably look at something. I actually bought a new mic, Stephen. This Hollyland rig. Have you heard of these guys, Hollyland?
I have, yeah.
So it's a little thing. It's a little button that goes on your shirt, and it comes with a USB-C transmitter. So you just plug it into your Mac, the transmitter or the receiver, and then the mic just clips onto your shirt, and it's really good for like $100. This stuff is all getting really good right now.
Yeah. It's amazing how far sort of home or work cameras, audio stuff have come. And that's, straight out of the pandemic, right? I mean, I remember in 2020, my brother trying to buy a webcam, and like you could not find one because everyone was, trying to get one because everyone was having to figure it out. And now, we all have these setups that, I don't do a ton of video calls, but it looks pretty good when I do. And And things like camo and an iPhone, like you don't even have to necessarily even have like a dedicated camera. You can use, the iPhone that you were going to hand down to somebody, or it's all come so far so quickly.
I actually wanted to touch on the backdrop side of things too. We talked about analog. We touched on analog a little bit, but like the analog setup of the composition of the set behind you when you do a video call. Think about those things. I always encourage people, think about what's showing up behind you. I don't know. I love playing with the composition of that from time to time, moving things around, trying different things.
Well, dorky, I think that there is something to like just let's just clean up, just like just make it look a little nice, I'm not saying people don't expect a little clutter and things, but like sometimes you'll see one and it's like, wow, this person really should have turned on the blur filter.
Yeah, it's a mindfulness and a care for quality again. I do appreciate those sorts of things.
I want to talk about that iMac. So which iMac are you on, the current one, the colored ones, or are you on one of the older ones?
No, I'm on a 2020. It's like the Retina 5K 27-inch 2020.
Okay. And the last of that line.
Yeah, 6-core Intel. So yeah, it's a super nice one. It's been serving its purpose beautifully. Sitting on a really beautiful desk that was made by me and my neighbor out here at the Desert Homestead. It was from a piece of wood I found out in the yard. So nice. Yeah, it's a great setup.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, you're in for a really nice day someday when you upgrade that to a Apple Silicon Mac.
Ooh, so now I'm going to be kind of itching to do that now.
Yeah.
Well, and then I have my laptop for when I'm on on the road. It's a slightly, so there's a funny thing I was trying in like 2021, 22, to just go all iMac or iPad. I was trying to just be iPad only because I was mostly writing, not really doing much else other than writing, not doing any more graphics stuff like I used to, not really doing no editing or audio stuff even. And I thought, now's the time. I had a nice iPad and I thought I'm going to switch over, but I couldn't make the leap. So at the end of 2020, I wrote a sort of a funny Medium blog post about it. I had actually posted a tweet and then I kept getting all these questions. So I decided to turn it into like a blog post on Medium. I was like, I tried for almost a month to switch over to iPad, and today I ordered a new MacBook Pro. So I'm using that MacBook Pro from 2022. It's like the 14-inch, I don't know, M1 Max. Yeah. And super, for my needs. Again, I'm mostly doing like, Google Docs and Google Slides. And I pop open like Photoshop or Figma every once in a while, but I'm pretty low fidelity these days. Like it's all writing and a lot of Chat GPT and whatnot. So yeah.
I feel like there's very few people left who have gone in on the iPad and stuck with it.
Yeah, it was I really wanted it to work, but yeah. It's just, there were a few things. I still loved the iPad for like my easy on the brain games, like Outlanders. I love, stuff like that. I love the Magic Keyboard. I love the Apple Pencil, but yeah, it's just, for the full capacity thing, just I am so much more nimble on, either a laptop or the desktop. So I just stuck with those.
What was the biggest friction point for you that prevented you from turning the iPad into your main thing?
The apps that I was working with. So I was using, my two main things that I was using were Medium, because I was writing mostly on Medium at the time. And I was using Squarespace for my web stuff because I was, I do these daily doodles. They're not so daily anymore, but I was doing these daily coffee doodles and like a daily thought. And just there was a lot of limited or broken features that made, details like adding and formatting posts and pages like way more difficult than it needed to be. Things like selecting blocks of text to relocate them. It never really worked out as expected. You end up moving entire sentences or vanishing things inadvertently. So yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm way too clumsy. And maybe the apps weren't quite there yet, or what I was choosing to work. And then, I picked up a little client work as well back then. And, so yeah, stuff like spreadsheets and Zoom and Slack and VPN authentication and stuff just wasn't working out for me. So I was like, all right.
Back in my lawyer days, I used to try occasionally to turn the iPad into my laptop. And I'll never forget sitting in a meeting where we were acquiring a company. And at one point during this fancy meeting, the other lawyer sent me like 20 spreadsheets and like 3 PowerPoints, and I was on the iPad. And I just thought to myself, this is not going to work. I got to get a laptop.
That's it. That's the experience right there. It's just like, this is just not going to scale with me here.
Yeah. This episode of the Mac Power Users is brought to you by 1Password, the internet security tool Stephen and I have both been using for years. I first discovered 1Password when they were just a small developer in the back of Tiny Town at Macworld so many years ago. But since the very beginning, 1Password has always been a company that brought you the best of both worlds, and that is top flight security plus ease of use. There are so many ways you see that in the application. Just one of them for me is the password generator. There's plenty of apps out there that will generate a password for you, but none of them do it like 1Password. With 1Password, you can get that random string of characters like most do, but 1Password also has other ways to do it, like they can give you a memorable password, which is a series of words, which is equally protective, maybe even more so, but also something that you can actually remember. You can decide whether there's numbers or symbols or how many words it is. I use this method to generate passwords all the time. It's definitely my favorite way to go because even if I don't remember the words, I can at least identify them as I put them in, knowing it's the right password for the right service. That's just one of the many ways 1Password goes above and beyond to give you the best top-flight password and internet security suite. And they've got options for everyone, whether you just need a personal account, up to your family, company, even your enterprise corporation. There's a lot of bad guys out there that are trying to get at your internet security. Put 1Password at your back and protect yourself and your family. Go to 1password.com/MPU today. You get 20% off your plan and get started with the full suite of 1Password protection. That URL one more time is 1password.com/MPU. And thank you, 1Password, for all of your support of the Mac Power Users.
So, Jaimee, I want to get into some of the software you're using, some productivity stuff you're doing, keeping up with all these different projects and the new job. I would imagine that you're spending, a fair amount of time in things like email and calendar. So how does that look for you?
So, okay, great question. And yes, that is exactly correct. And so kind of like the little spheres of life that I've got going on, I've got the Picture This Clothing and Amico apps, which are kind of weekend focused for me. And then I've got sort of my Coffee with Jaimee, which is personal stuff, and Play Studios, which is sort of the full-time gig. So I have everything kind of centrally feeding into from my Outlook calendar, which is what I use for Play Studios, but I feed it into the Apple calendar, which may seem sort of redundant, but it's so that I could have it on my widget, my desktop widget. And so I feed that in through there, but I use the Outlook calendar primarily. And I have to tell you, it's the thing I look at. It's the last thing I look at when I'm going to sleep, like right before bed. I look at my calendar to see what time I have to wake up tomorrow, because I'm at the age where that could be any time. Like I used to wake up so religiously, like at 4:30 and bam, 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 super productive sort of day. Now I'll sleep till like 6:30 if I don't have a 6 a.m. meeting, but I'm doing occasionally I have 6 a.m. meetings because I'm meeting with like Tel Aviv, or I have 6 p.m. meetings because I'm working with folks in Vietnam. And so I have, I feel like every day is a little jumbly from the next, right? And so that calendar is really my sort of my lifeblood, and it keeps me, okay, here's what I got going on today. Today looks completely different from tomorrow. And so it all starts with the calendar, and Outlook is great just with that scheduling tool, being able to look at other people's calendars and then, transmit that into my Apple calendars. This is kind of a long answer, but it all starts there. And then what else? My Google suite, I use all the Googles. And so everything from the, Google Drive, Google Docs, Sheets, Slides, that's one or many of those are, whittled throughout every day, woven throughout every day rather. And then other apps. So with like Amico and Picture This Clothing, to stay sort of organized and team communication, we use Trello. For Play Studios, I use Asana for that sort of thing. So there's that. A lot of Zoom.
That's a lot to unpack, but I mean, you are kind of in different buckets for different businesses, which I guess that kind of makes sense, really, so they don't kind of intermix. So let me just wind back a little bit. Neither Stephen or I use Outlook. I know a lot of our listeners do. What is the current state of Outlook? How's it doing?
So because I'm an Outlook user on a Mac, like I used to have a lot of frustration with it, but the latest version is pretty solid. And, the things that I like about it really for internal teams, that scheduling tool, I cannot say enough good things about the scheduling tool because you can, and I think Google Calendars might do this too, but I haven't used Google Calendars in many, many years. So I'm a little out of touch on that one. But that's really, the organization uses Microsoft and Outlook is one of those tools. I also use OneNote for my Play Studios, sort of just the same way you might use Evernote or different. I do a daily to-do list within OneNote. But with Outlook, it's all about that scheduling tool. Like I don't have to do that cumbersome step of like emailing someone to say, hey, do you have time to talk this week or in 3 weeks? I can just pop their calendar open, look at their availability, start the conversation with an invitation rather than that back and forth of like 3 to 6 emails to figure out who's available when and what time zone. The instant step, just start with the invitation because you have access to their availability is a super time saver.
Yeah.
Yeah, that stuff still makes the world go round in a lot of companies, right? We don't talk much about Office 365 and Outlook on the show, but it is everywhere. And, the history of that's so funny. Where like Excel started on the Mac for a long time. The best version of Word was on the Mac. And Microsoft is still absolutely committed to Apple's platforms. And there was a time where they were holding Office back from the iPhone and iPad in particular, but they're not doing that anymore. Like they're playing ball, and I think that's good for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, for a while it was bad. I mean, the Outlook database model was one where like if something went wrong, the whole database would become corrupt. I mean, I remember early days of Mac Power users hearing from listeners, and frankly, working in the law firm at those days, I was dealing with those things too. But yeah, it is much better now, and that's good to hear.
Yeah, it's functional. I hadn't used Outlook since I was at a .com in like 2000, 1999, 2000 out in the San Francisco Bay Area, and they used Outlook. And that was where I learned like the scheduling tool, but it was a lot less nimble then for us Mac users. And really in the company, the only Mac users was the design team. So we're the only Mac users. And so we're kind of the neglected ones of the bunch. Yeah. But yeah. And then coming back to Play Studios, into a corporate environment of some sort, where I mostly work from home, but yeah, getting on their system and kind of revisiting Outlook after all these years. It's the first time I've used it since then. So it's been, kind of relearning, but it's easy. It's easy. And I haven't had trouble with it. It's been pretty graceful.
We've talked about Asana some on the show. I feel like it pops up more and more often. For those who aren't familiar with it, it is a very team-based, collaborative. Task management is selling it short. It feels like project management is maybe a better way to describe it. But how has that been for you? And what are some things that it kind of unlocks when working with other people?
So, what I'm kind of building a learning and development team here. And so we just started a new hire in Vietnam. And then, I work with people in Serbia, in Belgrade, Serbia, and then in Tel Aviv, Israel, and trying to, you get different learning and development or training requests or ideas or needs from all these different regions, and they go to different sources. And so what I'm trying to do is get my arms around like a proper intake flow. So in all transparency, I just pulled Asana in last week and started using it. And so I'm much more familiar with Trello, but Asana was a tool that the marketing team already uses for their intake and all of that. So I did a quick tutorial with one of the marketing folks who just walked me through the highlights of Asana, how it works. I was like, oh, it's kind of like Trello. Great. I'll figure it out. So that's what I've been doing is, setting it up, but it's really for that, I need a way to allow people to submit requests and for me to organize the intake and to see what intake is coming from the other regions, and then be able to like globally align and prioritize without things falling through the cracks. That in a nutshell is what I need it for and what I plan to use it for.
Yeah, I feel like the people that really resonate with that are people who have complex project management or people who have group task management. It seems like for group task management, it's really I've heard from a lot of listeners, and we've even had guests on the show that just swear by it for that stuff.
And that's really what it will be. Like our Vietnam team will, do. I just need to be able to see and make sure we're staying on track, that we're not getting too far into the weeds of the local learning and development when we've got global priorities. And so that's kind of a piece of it. And so far, Asana looks exactly like, that this is going to help me solve that problem, I believe.
I ran a bunch of test data through it recently, Stephen, because I was looking at it from Xmarkey. And so I did the full, I think, 2-week trial till they turned me off. And I did not use live projects on it, but I think it's very accessible to like team members who aren't necessarily geeky if it's set up by somebody who knows what they're doing. And I see a lot of benefits to it. For me, ultimately, I decided Notion is kind of scratching the itch better for my team, which is 2 geeks, really. So it's not, we didn't really need that kind of hand holding, but I feel like Asana really is one of the big ones you should be looking at if you have a team. But I also am a fan of Trello, like you, and I don't use it because, again, I kind of get my Kanban itch scratched by Notion and some other Mac apps. But but Trello to me feels like the definitive Kanban app. Like if you want to run,
it's so easy. Yeah. And like even for Picture This Clothing, right? Like it was such a great flow, and can really set up an awesome flow within there for, it's like if we had an order that needed customer service attention. So like we could drop it in, and we had just this whole like 8 columns, right? And I could drag it. It comes in as soon as I've addressed it from a customer service side. I'll move it over to column 2. If they respond, I move it to column 3. It's just like this really nice flow. And the same thing for Amico apps. My participation in Amico apps is I do customer support on the weekends and sometimes in evenings. And I love it. I love connecting with the customers. It helps me stay on top of how the apps work, and it kind of keeps me fresh and well-versed. But and Trello really, really serves the purpose for that, just the way that they've got their boards set up. And I can go directly into the Jaimee column and address what I need to address, and, knock through the email inbox. And then if they have copywriting things or anything like that they need me to take a look at, I do. And so it's kind of, I really love Trello. I think just because I've been using it since, 2016, I think. So I have much more comfort with it, but I'm liking Asana and what I see so far.
Yeah. One of the apps that you use that we were talking about in the pre-show was, and I think that we don't give enough time to on the show, is Miro. And that Miro is an aspirational app for me. It's a online kind of diagramming tool.
Yeah.
and I've got the free account, and I've actually mapped out my whole like MacSparky kind of flywheel in there, and boy, is it nice. And every time I use that app, I'm tempted to subscribe to it.
I love it. And I started using it. I took on a freelance client back in, I think, early 2022, like January. I don't know. Anyway, early 2022. I took on a couple freelance projects. I had never even heard of Miro before that time. And they were using it. So I needed to kind of just jump in with both feet, figure out how to use it. But, that whole like infinite canvas and real time collaboration stuff, like those things have proven really, really helpful. And so when I joined the team here at Play Studios, we had a need to do some real time collaboration. Like people were using a lot of physical sticky notes and whiteboards and stuff. And I thought, you know what, like we're trying to collaborate with teams around the world. Let's give this a try. I saw that they already had a license for it. So I brought it in and kind of helped the HR team learn how to use it. And because I brought my previous contract experience there, but it's been really great for, everything from org chart mapping to brainstorming, ideation. I really love it for brainstorming and kind of plotting out things and just getting ideas out of my head. A lot of content strategy mapping I'll do inside Miro. Like I use it for a lot. And it gets a little messy, but you can clean it up and you can share certain zones with people. And I don't know, it's a pretty nice tool.
Yeah, I mean the obvious competitor in the Apple space is Freeform. Apple made like a free app that is sort of like Miro. It's a diagramming tool. It's free. It's cloud based, so if you make it on your phone, it shows up on your devices. It's easy to collaborate with people. But there is a refinement to Miro that I feel like Freeform just doesn't have. And my challenge is always like, there's the cheap part of me that's like, I can build these diagrams because it's only really a few people on my team anyway. So they're functional and good enough just using Freeform, but they're so much prettier, and they're more fun to make in Miro. I really feel like a pull on this one, but I also like try to use the Apple stuff, and that's a rough one for me.
So, there's also FigJam. Like if the design side of me trying to keep up with Figma, and there's FigJam as well. So like the designer at Amico uses Figma. And so the FigJam like comes into play every now and then there. Yeah. But I'm less involved in that side of it. Like it's great for, adding feedback to UI stuff or UX stuff. But yeah, like I haven't gotten way into FigJam, but it's pretty nice from what I can tell. The little bit of contact I've had with it, it's a good, depending on what you're doing. Like if you're more on the design side and if you're already using Figma, that might be a natural connection. But yeah.
So many great tools.
Yeah, it's really, we are in a rich time of applications like this. And, there's something to be said that these things are, mostly web-based, and that means you have access to them from everywhere. I think it's interesting that maybe Apple's platforms aren't necessarily at the forefront of some of this stuff anymore. It's a bigger conversation, but the beauty of it being online, at least, is that collaboration stuff is kind of more native, right? We've seen Apple for a long time struggle to add collaboration to things like Pages, Keynote, Freeform. They've come a long way and they're much better than they were, but things like Miro kind of built, things like Asana are definitely built with that sort of work from anywhere, work with anybody, anywhere collaboration in mind.
Exactly that. And yeah, you know what, a funny one that I use, like a super Mac, probably the app I might use the most lately is Notes. Like, not to sound ridiculous, but I use Notes like daily, every day. I have like over 1,000 notes in my little note thing. But I started using it when I was doing my daily coffee doodles. It's part of a journaling exploration. And so I would do my little journal note. Usually it's like 3 to 5 minutes it takes me to just jot out some thoughts and feelings for the day or stuff that's going on, or or whatever, motivation, inspiration stuff. And I would jot it down in my little notes, and then I would do my little coffee doodle or vice versa on the order. But and then copy paste it into my little Instagram. And that was, but I use it seriously. I use it for everything. I t-shirt ideas. I don't know, locations. We were in Portland, Oregon a week or two ago. And, I was like making notes. Oh, we ground control and the classic arcade. we need to go to the Japanese guys. I made and stuff, but I use notes for everything. Like a lot.
Yeah, you are not alone. I mean, notes is it's really, I use it a bunch too, and so does Steven, and we hear from listeners all the time because it's so weird because for those of us that have been around the Mac ecosystem long enough, we still remember the Comic Sans joke that was Apple Notes.
Right. It wasn't always as good as it is.
Yeah. And I don't know, for people who want to get nerdy, it used to sync with IMAP, which was completely, just bananas that they did that. But then it got good one day. And it was kind of immediate. I was at the Dub when they announced it, the notes update. And I remember that okay, now it just turned a corner. In fact, I think on one of our shows, we interviewed the guy who started that project. I don't remember what it was. It was this show, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, but Apple takes notes seriously now. And it to me, I always tell people, if you're sick of Evernote, Apple Notes is really their answer to Evernote. And it's so good. I mean, you can throw images at it, you can throw links at it. It just accepts everything. It's stable. You've got over 1,000 notes in it. You having any syncing problems?
No, I've never had. I mean, every once in a while I'll have to quit and restart. But I mean, when I say every once in a while, I think I did that maybe 6 months ago, it got a little clogged, but it really doesn't happen often.
Yeah. And we cover more high-end notes apps on the show. And every time we talk about Evernote or Note Planner, one of the more fancy ones, we always get emails from people saying, yeah, that's great, but Apple Notes is just fine.
Yeah. And seriously, even drafting a Slack message or whatever, so I don't accidentally hit return before I'm ready to send the message. I'll draft things very quickly over there in Notes and then copy and paste it over. And, if I need to update the formatting or whatever, but it really works. It's so handy. It's always right there. And it's on my phone or my desktop or my laptop, wherever I'm at, it's there. So yeah, I use it a lot.
How do you, what's your structure in Apple Notes? Or do you have any? Do you is it just anarchy and you just throw stuff in there? Or do you have folders or tags?
It's pretty much anarchy. I have a notes folder, whatever the default was, and I just add new notes at all times, and it goes back years. But I do use tags. I actually hashtag things, and it sorts my hashtags automatically. So
if you put a hashtag on it, it treats it as a tag.
Yeah. And then if all my coffee doodles, because I wanted to have that hashtags ready to go in my, my Instagram post or whatever. So those are all automatically, if I want to find any of those, they're already tagged, that kind of thing. So I can tag stuff, and it just kind of, if I'm thoughtful enough to do that, it'll do that for me.
Now, with 1,000+ notes, do you ever have a hard time finding what you're looking for?
No, usually I'll have some semblance of a memory and just type it in the search, and I have a terrible memory, but I'll be oh, Ken and I had a great t-shirt idea. And at the time it was a great t-shirt idea. So I titled it Great T-shirts. And if I just type in t-shirt, then it brings it up. And so, it's just one of those things. I think that's, I don't know, it's a funny thing, David. It's a great question because I feel at one time, because I used to do a lot of production work and stuff, I was almost hyper organized. I had physical binders and information architecture was a huge part of my life. And I still think about it a lot. It factors into everything I do. But for stuff like this, I feel so free and Wild West about it.
No, I think that the reason I asked the question is to make the point, because people like me, the idea of just having 1,000 notes in one folder, that to me sounds like insanity.
Yeah.
But it's because there's a part of me that just wants to organize the deck chairs as the Titanic goes down. I I think I use it as a mechanism of distraction,
I
and
love that.
just to remember, search is really good now, and you could have just one folder, and you are likely not going to have a problem finding whatever it is you want.
Exactly. Like I usually find it, and sometimes it's something I wrote. I didn't even realize how long ago I wrote it. And I'll just be like, oh, where's that thing? I know I made a note, and I search it, and it's like 2022 or whatever. And I'm like, wow, I didn't realize we wrote that so long ago. But yeah, that we had that idea forever ago.
This episode of Mac Power Users is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one website platform designed to help you stand out and succeed online. So whether you're just starting out or you're scaling your business, Squarespace gives you everything you need to claim your domain name, showcase your offerings with a professional website, grow your brand, and get paid all in one place. And that all in one place, that's where the magic happens with Squarespace. I love that you can start with a site and it can grow and adapt with your needs over time. Maybe you don't need a blog or a gallery on day one, or maybe you're not doing appointment scheduling right now, but you will in the future. It's really easy to turn those things on, rearrange the website, add sections to pages. It's all built in. You can get discovered quickly with integrated SEO tools because nobody wants to build a beautiful website just for no one to see it. That's why every Squarespace site is optimized to be indexed with meta descriptions, an auto-generated sitemap, and more, so more people will find your site through search engine results. And you can make smarter business decisions with Squarespace's built-in intuitive analytics. It makes it super easy to review website traffic, learn where to focus engagement, and even track revenue from bookings, invoices, or product sales. So head on over to squarespace.com/MPU to sign up for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch your site, use the offer code MPU to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain name. That's squarespace.com/MPU and the offer code MPU to get 10% off your first purchase. Our thanks to Squarespace for their support of Mac Power Users and all of Relay.
Now, you've been talking about Widget Wall, which I know is an app that you work on. Tell us about that.
Okay, so my capacity of working on is really I'm married to one of the co-creators, but I do customer service, so I don't do a lot more than that. I test things because I'm really good at breaking things and being confused. So I'm a great tester for that reason. But I love Widget Wall. It's desktop widgets for your Mac OS only, and one of the coolest features about it is, because I'm working across time zones a lot, it has this little clock widget, and I duplicate it. I have like 9 clocks on my desktop. I have Las Vegas time, Tel Aviv, Belgrade, Hanoi, Santiago, Chile, Mexico City, Singapore, Austin, and Hong Kong. All of those little 9 clocks up there. And what that allows me to do, if I'm doing a presentation in any one of these time zones, or I can say, hey, we're going to take a break. It's 12:47 a.m. Hanoi time. And so I can say it right in their time. I don't even have to say in Hanoi, like if I'm speaking to Hanoi, I can say, hey, at 1:00, let's come back. And then it's just a smooth thing. It's a small detail, but that attention to detail of speaking to someone in the time zone that they're sitting in, rather than having them have to math it out. Like, it's 10:48 a.m. here, it's 12:48 a.m. there. Like, who wants to do that math? I can just look at it and instantly refer to the time zone to whom I'm speaking, which is super nice. I know that's kind of a long story for one widget, but there's also, just simple things like the weather, there's a calculator, there's a music, there's a little timer, which I use a lot for focus, like 20 minutes, bam, if you're into like Pomodoro or anything like that. But then also, I love the confetti widget. And I'm just going to say it is a little burst of joy, a moment's burst of joy. And it's silly and I love it. And I think it speaks very well to the personality of Ken and Ignazio, who created the app. So
and just for folks who aren't familiar, it's an app that allows you to build kind of user customized widgets that are kind of permanently on your desktop. So like if you want to see in the background things like she's talking about, like time zones or things that you constantly need reference to, it's there. And it's a really well done app. It's been around for years, right?
It has. It actually, it came out of need, and it existed before the Apple native widgets came out.
Yeah.
So it's just like, because you're a widget guy, Stephen.
Yeah. Yeah. I spend a lot of my time working on Widgetsmith, and, the Mac was like kind of forgotten. We had Dashboard, forever ago. Yeah. And then Apple just had this, I mean, it's still there, just the sad thing with like the widgets and the notification center, like what's going on over there. And so what I love about Widget Wall is y'all saw a place in the market, right? Like, hey, Mac users want this too. And after our sort of preliminary call, like downloaded it and been playing with it, and it's really, really good. And I totally second the confetti thing. It is so much fun.
It's fun. And what's a really interesting note about it is it actually went viral on TikTok, Widget Wall did. And it's kind of beloved by college students who love to customize their desktops. Who knew? You get your first Mac desktop or laptop when you're going off to college, and this customization and the desktops designs that people share are just adorable. So I see the most adorable desktops, and you think of it usually, you think of your like Mac tech dudes really loving this, but it's like the college age girls that love this app. And I think that's such an amazing thing. My daughter's age, both of them, I have a 16 and a 20-year-old, and both of them absolutely love it. So I thought that was such an interesting surprise demographic.
I always think it's interesting, when Apple shows up in an existing category, like the famous Sherlock term. And I think so often it's actually Sherlocking doesn't apply. It like opens people's eyes to something. And then like developers like Widget Wall always take it to the next level. Like if you like the built-in widgets, but you'd like it more customizable, more options, you look at something like Widget Wall. I mean, you can't do a lot of the stuff with the Apple stuff that you can do with what you guys are doing. And like you have it playing a video, or, I actually, so like you, I've been playing with it. I like the white noise generator because I'm always looking for white noise. Got a white noise generator right on the desktop. You hit the button, off you go. Countdowns, count ups. They've got all the stuff you can think of. So it's just like a one kind of stop shop. And I also like that it's an app you run, so it's just in the background on your desktop. We've got these giant screens. Why not use the space for something, productive?
Oh, I love that. Thank you for that. Yeah. They'll appreciate the kind words.
You talked about analog tools, and you've got sticky notes, like stickies back on the Mac. That's kind of fun to see.
Yeah,
it brings me back.
So you mentioned earlier you're kind of handling support for this app and some others on the weekends, and what is that, just over email? Do y'all have like a ticketing system? How does that work? Kind of dealing with customers and then figuring out, hey, this is a feature we should build based on feedback, or this is just somebody kind of yelling into the sun, like, things that a lot of us deal with who are working on apps. How do you approach that sort of thing?
Yeah, so a combination of email and Trello. And so for, when I get a bug, I put it in Trello, and then the team, it's Alexi, Ken, and Ignacio will review it, and they'll prioritize based on need and bug. And, like things are buggy, things get, broken. And they just released a new release this month, and then a bug fix on the 8th of May. And so, things happen, and sometimes you get surprised. And anyway, so to answer your question, it's really email. Like I field the email inbox, and then I file things in the Trello board, and they have, it's everything from feature requests to bugs to other things that they want to improve or work on. It's a pretty, I feel like they keep it pretty organized, and I have my little columns that, I add to the bugs, I add to the feature requests, and I tackle the Jaimee column. So I my 3 columns in Trello, but they have several columns up in there. I'll set up really nice. And 3 of them are great at working, together and communicating together. So yeah. And then I just jump in to help when I can.
I didn't realize this app is part of SetApp too. So if you've got a SetApp subscription, you already own a license.
Yes.
Just go ahead and download it.
Yep. It's on the App Max, the Apple App Store for Mac. And yeah, SetApp. I love SetApp. That's where I found CleanShot X, which is another one that's just kind of my little menu bar. But I love CleanShot X. I can't tell you how often I use that, especially for support stuff, Stephen. Like that's another little piece. Sometimes you just need to do a quick demo of how to delete something or how to change a photo or how to, one of those really quick little things. I can create a little animated GIF for them. And I say GIF. And so yeah, it's super easy. I can paste that into an email, super quick. Anyway, so that's another plug for one I discovered on SetApp.
Yeah, CleanShot X. It's like, have we met anybody who found it and didn't get immediate religion?
I don't think we have.
I honestly didn't want to like it because, I thought I was such a pro. I had made these labs videos about everything you can do with the built-in Apple one. I'm like,
yeah,
I don't need CleanShot X. I can do this stuff. And Steven and Mike and everybody's like, oh, you got to try it. And I'm like, I'll try it, but I'm not going to like it because I like the things I do better. And then like a week later, I'm like, okay, you guys are right. This is better.
I was like you, David. That was very much me. I was like, I already, sometimes I'm a little bit of a curmudgeon when it comes to onboarding new systems, like learning new things. Like I love change and I love newness, but at the same time, it's hard and it's sometimes daunting. And I just like the way I do things already, but being open to trying, it's amazing what we can learn and what we can get exposed to. And that actually makes our lives easier than we thought it could be.
Yeah, totally. And like, I actually cover this in the Alfred Field Guide, but if you use Alfred, there is a CleanShot X workflow that I didn't know existed until I made this guide. It has changed my life because CleanShot has so many features. That's the thing. Like you don't remember or like how to trigger a feature. You got a mouse up to the menu bar. Now I just type CSX in Alfred. And with that workflow, I'll put the workflow link in the downloads. Man, if you got Alfred with CleanShot X, it like takes you to a whole new level.
Amazing. Now I have a new thing to try.
Yeah, I'll give you the link to that. It's great.
I love it. I love it.
What else is in your menu bar, Jaimee? What are some of the apps that kind of bring you joy and delight?
So we talked about CleanShot X. I'm just going to go kind of from right to left, I guess. I have a widget wall, which we talked about. And I forgot to plug the battery feature, but because I'm on my desktop, but for laptop, there's a battery widget. So that's one I use all the time. And I like it better than the one up in my menu bar. But let's see. Quit All is another one that's always in. It's another Amico apps, but it's only. It's not in the App Store. It's only available either through. It's through SetApp or through the Amico apps website. So not to overplug Amico, but Quit All is just a super easy way to quit all your apps really fast.
That's cool. I've never seen this one before. So interesting.
Yeah, it's a good one. Like it's a really good one. And, super simple, solves one problem. Like when your stuff starts getting all laggy, you can just quit everything all at once. And there's a way to like leave stuff on. I encourage folks to get in and play with that. I do customer support for that as well, which is primarily what's the next one on my.
I think I'm going to download and check this out because it's also on SetApp. But like I do the thing once in a while where I hit Command Tab and then you can cycle through and hit the Q button to quit each one
individually. This one, and that's kind of a pain.
Time.
Exactly. This is like instant, and I love it, and I've used it so many times just for exactly that. Like especially they launched it quite a few years ago, but like when I was using Photoshop more, for example, things just get laggy. Or if you've got Final Cut Pro open and you've got I don't know a bunch of different things open, and you can leave some on and turn everything else off in a single click. And it's pretty sweet. So yeah.
Looks like you can set your own keyboard shortcut so you can make it really fast. Nice.
I have focus up there. And then I use Bartender, and I don't know. I've heard that there's some like controversy on Bartender, but I really like it. It's, especially on my laptop with that stupid notch that things just vanish all the way. The stupid notch, that wasn't very nice, but
yeah, that's kind of true.
It's one of those things where like, if you don't know, so this comes up in the customer support side all the time. People are like, I can't see my widget wall, or, it's not working. And it's like, okay, so here's what's probably happening is you have so many apps open that widget wall is actually hiding behind the notch, because that's how Apple handles it, right? They just hide the apps.
I am so shocked by that still.
So
right?
am I.
Like, they added a notch, and they didn't like write something into the OS to tell menu bar apps just to jump over the notch.
Right? It's a weird thing.
It feels to me sloppy. I don't know, Steven, what do you think about that? Yeah.
Super sloppy. I mean, it's the reason Bartender and its alternatives exist, and in some ways they're more valuable tools now than they were, on older notebooks. We did on episode 787, we did a whole section about Bartender, and I think what that basically boils down to is it got purchased, and that process was not really clearly communicated, and they sort of had a couple of communication blunders in a row, but I'm using it. I tried a bunch of other ones, and I always come back to Bartender. It's so good, and I think that the dust up is basically behind them now.
Yeah, I think it's over. That whole thing is overstated. And one of the features in Bartender for notch people, for people on a laptop, is it can put the Bartender below the menu bar. It's like right below it. So it just slides right underneath your notch, and then you can see everything. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons to like that app.
I love it. And it holds, it's the holder of my other things like 1Password and Setapp and Dropbox. And I do still use Adobe Creative Cloud from time to time. And yeah, that's kind of, I think, the extent of my my menu bar.
Another thing you do, Jaimee, that I think is interesting, always an interesting question to me, is you also like analog tools. You use paper and pencil and note cards, but you're also a digital lady. So, I mean, how do you figure out where those lines are drawn?
It kind of just, I set up my work. So we moved out to this, 10-acre desert land, Ken and I, in December. We bought it a couple of years ago, but we've been working on it slowly. Another weekend project, right? A hoarder home overhaul. And when I set up my little office here, which was formerly a storage room, so it's this cute little space, but I love it so much. And I set up my workflow around my morning coffee. And so, I do this thing where I like make my morning coffee. I come in, the sun is rising out my window, and I start with my pencil. I set up my little camera, my iPhone, on a holder that also has a ring light, but I face it down toward my desk, and I do my coffee doodle. I doodle over dried coffee spills. And this is sort of like setting my daily mood and intentions for the day. It's just like this little exercise I do. And then often I'll put a journal with it. And so now in the last month or so, I've fallen off of my daily doodles, but this was a very analog process. It's a very therapeutic process for me. I am an art kid to the core, right? Like my college, my degree is in metal sculpture. I don't know if you know that, but I was a drawing and metal sculpture was my major. And then I figured out computers because I had to learn how to make a living, and I didn't want to do fabrication. So anyway, so computers happened for me. But yeah, so like this sort of moving out to this desert homestead, I'm outside more. I'm working with my hands, pulling weeds and planting things, and I'm drawing again, which I've been so digital for most of my professional career that coming back to some of these tactile and analog tools has really just been like a spirit builder for me. Like I feel so at peace. And to me, it's going back to those sort of analog pieces, but then integrating them. I still love technology. I don't know. I kind of a wannabe nerd, I guess, but like, I love my Mac. I love my Apple products. I love being able to create things quickly, but I also love my colored pencils and my note cards and my sticky notes. And I don't think and my big paper calendar. I have a big desk calendar that, is kind of, I always have to cross check my Outlook calendar to make sure that everything's synced up. But I use that paper calendar all the time.
I really think I experience the same thing. Like using analog tools to me scratch a different itch. I think maybe because I spend so much time on the digital, taking time to go analog on occasion is like a different mindset. Like my brain works a little different. And I think there's absolutely something to that. And a lot of people, we're hearing from a lot of people now who are exploring with that. Like nobody's saying, I'm going to give up my computer and work everything out of a notebook. Well, a few people are saying that, but not many. And, but, I think most people realize, no, computers are really useful and tech is really useful, but it's not the end of the story for the way I think and process things. Like, we were talking about Miro earlier. So often for me, I've got a glass board and I've got some big paper in my studio. And so often the types of things you would do in Miro, I do analog and then I just take a picture of it.
I love that. Yeah.
There's definitely an advantage for a bigger team to have a diagram that's digitally created. So like I too, I don't think there is a right answer to this stuff, but I think it's absolutely something people should be exploring. What are some of your favorite analog tools that enhance kind of the digital for you?
So I use these little, what are they, 5x7 watercolor cards. And, I spill my little coffee drops and they're intentional now. It started by accident. These started because I have a big paper calendar on my desk always. Back when I worked with Black Pixel, like way back 2011, 2012, I would rush for our daily stand up with my cup of coffee, set it on the desk. The coffee would invariably, always spill. And then later I would have these dried coffee spills. And, when you get, not to say that meetings were boring, but sometimes meetings are boring. And I always end up doodling in a boring meeting. And so I started doodling and then I started photographing them with my iPhone and uploading them originally to a Tumblr blog. And, it got a little traction at the time. And then, I don't know, I just kind of kept doing them on and off. They were always kind of just a therapeutic thing for me. And then, I don't know, eventually somebody was like, you should make an Instagram for them. So I did. And here we are today. But I guess that would probably be the one that I speak to the most is my note cards. I think they make for a really nice, I like my little Instagram. They changed from square to a different format. So I feel like all my photos are weirdly framed now on my Instagram. But at one time it looked really nice.
Well, Jaimee, you are a woman of many hats. We appreciate you coming on, spending some time with us. Congratulations on all the different things you're doing. I love that you're able to pull it all off with different tool sets and make it work. If people want to learn more about the stuff you're doing, where should they go?
Coffeewithjaimee.com is the best place to find me at any phase in life.
All right. Okay, we'll put a link for that in the notes. We are the Mac Power Users. You can find us at relay.fm/MPU. If you'd like to get the ad-free extended version of the show, sign up for more Power Users. You can do it right there, relay.fm/MPU. Thank you to our sponsors today, 1Password and Squarespace. We'll see you next time.